WNBA, the dumbest league in sports history. Over the years, the WNBA has been a professional sports league that is a laughing spectacle and has completely tarnished its reputation. We are requesting the same percentage of revenue share, even though the WNBA has been operating at a loss for decades, and we have been consistently complaining about not receiving enough compensation. The financially distressed players have also consistently attributed their woes to males. I am exceedingly frustrated with males. Even though males comprise the league's primary viewership demographic, this is the primary reason for the league's lack of mainstream popularity. I am delighted. The WNBA is currently sabotaging its most promising opportunity to expand the league and achieve its financial goals. After 3 decades of player complaints, the WNBA was fortunate to have a player enter the league who was genuinely popular on a mainstream level. She was the individual who would propel the league to the next level. The most renowned female basketball player of all time is, of course, Caitlyn Clark. The WNBA players should be expected to defeat Clark, as she is their opportunity to potentially elevate this Make-A-Wish league to a more respectable status. However, this season, the WNBA has solidified its status as the most naive league in the annals of sports. The league's players and its deranged supporters have seemingly been exerting themselves to discredit Caitlyn Clark, diminish her appeal, and alienate Clark's substantial fan base from the league. They have sacrificed their best opportunity to achieve their aspirations. One perspective on this is the ideologically motivated narrative that Caitlyn Clark's mainstream popularity is solely due to her whiteness and that other athletes are deserving of greater recognition and popularity. I do believe that her whiteness renders her more relatable to a broader audience. There is a concept known as white privilege. Tall privilege exists, and we must recognize it. Therefore, a portion of the issue pertains to ethnicity, as it is necessary to consider the Brittany Grinders of the world. Why was it necessary for her to travel to Russia to play? You may proceed. Clark's popularity on a mainstream level is evident to all rationally thinking individuals, as she was the most exceptional and thrilling female basketball player of all time, breaking numerous records and performing feats that the mainstream sporting audience had never seen a woman do while playing basketball. So it is absurd to refer to mainstream basketball supporters as racist, particularly when one considers that the NBA is the mainstream equivalent of the WNBA, and the only white players with jersey sales in the top 15 of the league in recent years have been Nyakic and Luka Doncic. For what reason? They are exceptional basketball players and some of the most engaging in the league, which is the same reason people admire Clark. She is both dominating and amusing. However, rather than acknowledging that Clark's popularity is a result of this straightforward truth, WNBA players and their supporters chose to label Clark's fans as racist. This is an incredibly stupid tactic that serves to alienate them from their desire to watch the league. The derangement does not end there, as certain talking heads were advising sports anchors such as Stephen A. Smith that they should have been covering the WNBA years ago before Caitlyn Clark arrived in the league. Okay, who is discussing the WNBA? Who was more vocal about women's sports than First Take? Stephen A., respectfully, you could have been conducting this activity 3 years ago if you had desired to, given your platform. I apologize, but the WNBA was not a topic of interest before Clark's arrival. In contrast to the WNBA, which is subsidized by Make-A-Wish and can afford to lose millions annually, the majority of individuals in the workforce are required to generate revenue for their place of employment. Therefore, Stephen A. Smith would have likely been terminated for dedicating portions of his program to the WNBA, as no one would have tuned in before the arrival of Caitlyn Clark, as there was no interest in the game. Moving away from these deranged supporters and concentrating on the court, it is evident that WNBA players have been exerting themselves to potentially injure their cash cow, Caitlyn Clark, or to make her feel completely unwelcome in the league. Kennedy, who were you Carter recently channeled her inner Marshawn Lynch and trucked Caitlyn Clark off the ball without reason, committing an extremely dirty infraction. And if you observe the sidelines, Carter's teammates are enthusiastic about this dishonorable play, and you would only become so excited if a player had committed an injustice against your team. Well, what was the severe injustice that Caitlyn Clark inflicted upon them? Increasing one's popularity and earning more money. The hubris. Then, when questioned about the foul, Carter stated, "I had no questions about Caitlyn Clark after the fever. Did she address you in any way?" I am unaware of her remarks. What did you say to her? I refrain from uttering any words. That is not to be overly petty, but Kennedy, who Carter has been on 3 WNBA teams in 4 years, is barely clinging to a position in the league and should likely focus on herself rather than committing egregious hard fouls on the most beloved player in the league. Carter's hatred for Caitlyn Clark is ironic, as she is now only known to the public as a result of her relationship with her. Next, we have Angel Reese, another ultimate denier, who tweeted that Caitlyn Clark's games are not sold out solely because of her, but also because of the other players on the court, including herself. In an interview, Reese reiterated her assessment, asserting, "Observe the state of women's basketball. Women's basketball is currently the subject of conversation. You would never consider that we would be discussing women's basketball. Individuals are arriving at the events. We had arenas that were sold out and celebrities attending events. For instance, I would accept that role solely on account of looking at that one game. I will assume the role of the villain and will persist in doing so for the benefit of my comrades. If I aspire to be that, and I am aware that I will be a part of history, I will reflect on the past in 20 years and realize that the reason we are viewing women's basketball is not solely due to one individual. I am also responsible for this, and I want you to understand this. Exactly. The level of delusional jealousy is unparalleled in this context. The information, Caitlyn Clark is the sole common denominator among the most watched female basketball contests. Caitlyn Clark was the player in the most watched WNBA contest, not Angel Reese. However, Reese is the quintessential personification of the sentiment that numerous players harbor toward Clark. They all desire to expand the league, but they are envious that another individual is leading the charge and receiving all the attention. This is likely because Clark does not conform to the standard image of the athlete they would like to represent in the league. Therefore, the WNBA is negatively impacted by the bitter players' efforts to diminish the prominence and notoriety of Caitlyn Clark, who is the sole reason the public is aware of them. Who would want to endorse a league that is overtly populated by individuals who are ungrateful, jealous, and bitter? No one. In all honesty, the WNBA would prefer to falter without Clark than to succeed with her. At this juncture, the majority of mainstream sports enthusiasts likely wish that Clark would depart from this pitiful excuse of elite and play overseas, where the players are not professional victims and complainers. They would also prefer that the WNBA fade into obscurity, as the WNBA players are unlikely to alter the mentality that is destroying their league. This is the reason the WNBA must be considered the most incompetent sports league of all time. Despite being presented with the most exceptional opportunity to realize the aspirations they have discussed for decades and revitalize this failing league, they are doing everything in their power to undermine Caitlyn Clark and the opportunity she presents. In any case, I appreciate your attention. Until we meet again, everyone, please share your thoughts in the remarks section. If you found it enjoyable, give the video a thumbs up. Additionally, activate the channel by subscribing and the bell notifications to ensure that you never miss out on new content.